Hi, Marcela. Welcome to the Getting Married Multiculturally podcast. I am so excited to have you here today.
Well, hello, Edith. I'm excited to be on your podcast today.
We connected on the Brightchilla Facebook group. It's a pretty good group, and it's a really big one where couples connect and help each other plan their wedding. And I actually found you on a different group where was Brightchilla graduates are on that, who are talking about the next step after you get married and how to figure out life as a married couple and all of that good stuff. So that's where I found you. And you said that you had a Mexican American wedding, a blended wedding. Plus, you also added some Game of Thrones and Harry Potter flair into this, which is incredible because just by adding two different cultures into a wedding, it's already pretty difficult and challenging to do. And you actually added even more to it, which sounds pretty excited. And I can't wait to hear more about that.
Yes.
Okay, so before we start talking about the actual wedding, let's introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about who you are, where do you live, what's your nationality, and then maybe you can get into talking about who your husband is.
All right, great. Well, I'm Marcela and I live in Texas. I've lived in Texas for about 19 years, but I was born in Mexico and I lived there until I was almost 12. And so my whole family is still very typical, and we don't want to let go of the culture, but at the same time we want to embrace the American culture, if that makes any sense. So it's sometimes it's difficult. My husband is American and he's from Lexington, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he had ever had an interaction with someone that was actually like a Mexican person that did all the traditions and spoke Spanish, went to Mexico and all that. So it's always been fun and a learning experience with each other.
I really love that you mentioned that the Mexican tradition is such a new experience for him because,
Yes.
I moved to America and I noticed that Americans really know the Mexican culture. There are a lot of people who know somebody who's Mexican. So it's a really cultural, and even the language is so well known here in this country. Not like in Europe, I never met a Mexican in Europe, So that's interesting that you say that. I must have been kind of like a really fun experience for him, and, surprise even that he
Yes.
started this kind of relationship.
Yes. Yes.
So, have you ever thought that you would end up in a intercultural relationship, that you would be with somebody? I mean, you did move to a new country like I did. As soon as you move to another country, you are kind of assuming I'm probably going to end up with somebody from a different culture.
You know what's funny is that I almost knew I was going to end up marrying someone from a different culture, so it wasn't really a shock, I guess, because the neighborhood where we lived wasn't very cultural. It was mostly, it was mostly white, so I don't think it was a shock. So yeah, I kind of knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, that's same for me. I just kind of knew that's going to happen, but it's not something that you can prepare to
Oh
either,
yeah.
because there's just so many things that they bring you into the relationship that is not really cultural. Yeah. And how did it feel for you to adopt to American culture? Was it easy for you when you moved here?
Actually, no, it wasn't easy at all. I mean, you go from even like having to measure, in centimeters and switch to inches and then learn the language. And yeah, no, there was a lot of things that were culture shock, from potlucks and activities in school to the way American people do parties. So it wasn't easy, but I guess I love different cultures, so it was fun.
So when you were little, did you dream about a wedding, and did you imagine like one day when I get married, I'm gonna have this type of wedding, or you just didn't really think about it and it is what it
No.
is?
No, so when I was little, I wasn't very girly. I was more of a tomboy, so I never thought about weddings.
Uh huh.
And for some reason, growing up, the only weddings I saw were on Mexican soap operas. So they
Mm-hmm.
only show the part walking down the aisle at the church. They don't show
Ah,
anything else. So I never, yeah, I wasn't a person that dreamt about their wedding.
yeah.
And then when I got in a relationship with Brian and the wedding subject started coming up, I planned like 5 different weddings on Pinterest, and none of those were what my actual wedding was.
Uh
So
huh.
when it actually happened for real, it was totally different.
Oh, that's funny. So were you like had different type like Mexican wedding, American wedding, or some other type of wedding, or you were kind of trying to blend them together on one board?
Yeah, you know what? So my husband had always said that if he got married, he would always want to get married at the beach.
Oh.
So I thought, okay, we're going to get married at the beach. But then I love the winter and I love the snow. So I
Mm-hmm.
always had like a beach wedding and a winter wedding.
Uh-huh.
But when it came down to it, once you start thinking about the cost and how
Mm-hmm.
are people going to get there, is it realistic for you to plan a wedding in the snow? The best thing for us to do was actually to do it local. And
Mm-hmm.
it was just Texas weather.
Yeah. Which is kind of hot. But I know you got
Yeah.
married in December, right?
Yeah, so we got married in December and we got really lucky with the weather. It was
Uh-huh.
December 28th and the weather was cloudy, which I love because it was a ceremony outside and it was about 65 degrees.
Oh, that's
So as far as Texas weather goes, we hit the jackpot.
uh-huh. Oh, that's great.
Yes.
Did you have a specific reason for choosing December?
Just because I love Christmas
Mm-hmm.
and I always wanted a ceremony outside. That's what I always knew I wanted. So December was the month where you didn't get too much rain and you
Mm-hmm.
could get cooler weather.
Oh, I love that. All right, let's circle back to our initial part of you guys decided to get married, and then how did your parents and your whole family kind of reacted to this? You mentioned that. So you said that your family, your parents, siblings that are moved to America, or did you have more extended family that came here?
Um, so it's half and half. My extended family has been here for generations.
Mm.
But we're not a really close family, so they actually haven't met my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And my immediate family, I guess it's the same thing where it's like we can go from really Mexican to really American in a second. So they were
Mm.
totally fine.
So what were their reaction when they find out that you're gonna marry an American?
Um, my immediate family was perfectly fine. My extended family was kind of like they didn't really approve. They thought it's crazy and why am I marrying outside of my race? So it wasn't too positive.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like they were more the older generation, or the extended family who lives in Mexico, or why do you think why do you think families would feel that way?
What's funny is that my family who lives in Mexico
Mm-hmm.
was actually more excited about me marrying an American person than my family that lives here in the US. My
Interesting.
family in Mexico, they were happy. They thought it's so cool.
Yeah.
And my family here was like, well, you're going against us and you're joining the other side. you're gonna have mixed babies. So, it was kind of interesting. I thought it would
Yeah.
be different, the opposite.
It's interesting because I'm trying to think why that is, and I had similar experiences, not with my marriage, but just moving to countries and leaving families behind and things like that. I think it's because once those families that left Mexico, they you start to feel so much more of holding on to that tradition.
Mhm.
And if you feel like now you have to share it with somebody from a different culture or mix somebody into your group, now it's all of a sudden gonna weaken. But
Yeah,
people who live in Mexico, they are excited because they don't feel that worry of now we're gonna be less Mexican because you
right.
have an American husband. You know what I mean? That's
Yes.
interesting. Yeah. So, did you have any prior your wedding, any kind of event or maybe like a photo shoot or something that was very specific to one of the traditions that maybe the other one wouldn't have?
Yeah, so I mean, it started with the proposal.
Mm-hmm.
In the typical Mexican culture, you actually don't have the type of proposal that Americans have. Actually, an engagement ring, it's not even a thing.
Really?
When you talk about marriage, it's more like you have a conversation and you both decide you want to get married, and then you start planning a wedding. So a proposal was something different. And my husband now, he actually took my mom to lunch and asked her, for permission to marry me, which I'm like,
Uh-huh.
okay. And so that's something that doesn't really happen. So my mom appreciated it, and she went on to talk about it so much because it's just something that's not common. So
Yeah.
that was the first thing. So the proposal is not typical. And then we had an engagement photo shoot, which is not typical either. I knew about
Mm-hmm.
it, but no one in my family had actually seen it or done it. And
Mm-hmm.
then a rehearsal dinner. The rehearsal dinner is something that we also don't do. I think it's probably the thing that my family had the most questions about and that they were the most uncomfortable with because they had never been to a rehearsal dinner. So they didn't know what's expected of them to wear or what's expected of them to do, or they were just like, okay, well, what is it? Why are we doing it? So
Yeah.
yeah, those were the three main things. And bridesmaids and groomsmen is something
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't happen.
And you did ended up having all of those, so you kind of
Yes.
followed along with the American tradition.
My husband really wanted a bridal party. I had never thought of having bridesmaids, but my friends, they're all with the American culture, so I think they were expecting to be my bridesmaids. And when I told them I wasn't planning on having any bridesmaids, they were kind of sad.
Yeah.
So then it was something that we compromised on because
Uh-huh.
we had always wanted to have groomsmen, and my friends were waiting to be bridesmaids.
Oh.
We met in the middle. So we had a small bridal party.
Oh, that's good. That's good. It's a little compromise, and
Yeah.
it's always fun to, for your Mexican family to introduce this new culture. Now they can say we've been to a rehearsal dinner, now we know what it is.
Yes, yes,
So was there
yes.
something that sticks out to you, some memory during that dinner or anything like that that was kind of an eye opening for you?
Yeah, so everybody was nervous, and my in-laws live in Lexington, and my mom, they hadn't met. So my mom was really nervous about meeting her at the rehearsal dinner because most of our typical Mexican culture parties are big and loud and casual. We don't really do formal things.
Mm-hmm.
And so for my mom to be at a formal event with people that she's never met
Yeah.
was kind of nerve wracking. So, what I did is I actually arranged for dinner at our house. so that they would meet prior to
Uh-huh.
and kind of get the nerves of meeting out of the way a little bit. And so, yeah, everybody was nervous at first, including myself, because it was my first rehearsal then as a bride, and introducing everybody and meeting some of his
Yeah,
friends. But everybody had fun.
that's good. I think that's one of the challenges we run into as intercultural couples, that we actually, the wedding or pre-wedding is the time when the families meet together for the first time, right? So that's
Yes,
something that's always just so stressful for everybody.
yes.
Was your husband nervous too, or he just said, "Oh, it's gonna be fine"?
He wasn't nervous, which I don't understand why or how, but he was just so relaxed through the whole thing that
Uh-huh.
he
Oh,
was fine.
oh, good. Then you guys are a good balance, seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like also my family is just really just a casual gatherings always, and everybody's always loud. And I know I get it from my husband all the time, like, why are you yelling? I'm not yelling, I'm just excited.
Yeah, that's exactly how we are. And I had to tell my people an earlier time so that they would show up at the time that it was actually happening.
Oh,
So,
yeah, to not be late.
yes.
Oh, yeah, we have that too. If you're 10 minutes late, you're good. If you're half hour, that's normal.
Yeah.
It's so funny. So, why was it important for you to make sure that you have both cultures present, or what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like show one culture to the other one. Why was that important for you?
Well, I mean, I think it's part of who you are.
Mhm.
So it was important for me to show this is my wedding and I'm Mexican and this is what I know. Even though I didn't dream of a wedding for myself, this is the weddings that I've been going to my whole life. And same
Mhm.
thing for my husband. So I kind of wanted them to blend and kind of share, we share the American traditions with his family and share the Mexican traditions with our family and the guests. We
Mhm.
had a really multicultural guest list, so it was kind of a smoothie and introduction to two cultures for
Yeah.
everybody.
So initially, how long was your engagement when you started to plan a wedding?
Let's see. So I got engaged in the beginning of December the prior year, and I started planning, I would say probably around February because of the
Mhm.
holidays, we
Yeah.
kind of had to get that out of the way. And it was totally unexpected. I didn't know he was going to propose to me, so it
Mhm.
took me it took me some time to actually get used to the fact that I was actually getting married.
Yeah.
So it was about, I guess, planning a little less than a year, maybe 10 months or so.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Yeah. When it's unexpected, then you need to let
Yeah.
yourself some time to realize what is gonna happen, and then you can actually take actions to it, right?
Yes.
So was your partner involved into the wedding planning? Did you guys have some communication about, like, okay, are we gonna have Mexican? Are we gonna have American wedding? Or what kind of conversations did you guys have?
So, we planned it
Mm-hmm.
together. We
That's
did
good.
have a day of coordinator, but all the planning was done between me and him. So we knew that we wanted to do kind of like a half and half, but we wanted to do something that just really spoke to us. So there were some Mexican traditions that we didn't do because it's just something that I didn't really believe in. So I didn't want to do them just because they're a Mexican tradition. And same with him. There were some things that are belong to the American culture that he doesn't believe in. So we just did what felt like it was us.
Mm-hmm. That's good that you kind of make a cultural decision that's your culture, and then he made his decision from his culture, and then you just kind of got together what's left, right?
Yeah.
I love that. Did your parents or family wanted or tried to kind of get involved with the wedding planning? And if they did, how did that played out in your family?
My mom, she was really good at staying out of it for the most part, but she did have requests as far as like she wanted to decide what song I should do for our first dance, which was not happening. And
Was it a
she
Mexican music?
yes,
Yeah.
it was a Mexican dance that would require my husband to wear a mariachi suit. So
Oh.
that I was like, no, that's not gonna happen. It just doesn't even go with the feel of the wedding.
Uh-huh.
No. And then she wanted to influence the guest list a little bit, and the bridesmaid dresses a little bit. So those are things that she wanted to be involved with, that I didn't really let her be involved with. So yeah, that was that. That was
So
that.
was she okay with it? Like,
She was a little sad in the beginning, but then she said, well, I remember when I got married, when she got married, she didn't make any of the decisions. So
oh,
she remembered how she
that
felt with
feeling.
people making decisions for her. So she let go.
Oh, that's good. That's
Yeah.
very nice of her. What about your husband's family? Do they maybe push some American tradition that
No, no, actually, they were great. They were all on board for whatever we did, and they didn't try to change anything
yeah,
or add
that's
anything.
good. Okay, so now let's get into like your actual wedding day. Maybe you feel like the
Mhm.
memories just kind of settle down, and or you feel like you're forgetting some memories that you really just wanted to hold on to.
They settled, and I'm not forgetting anything, but it's easier for me to think about it now than before, because when I used to think about it right after the wedding, it was always, I should have done this, or I forgot to do that. And
Mhm.
so it was, like a panicky memories. And now I see it in a different way. I'm like, hey, that actually went well. And so now the memories are better.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's just really how it happens. Like when
Yeah.
it happens, we're so stressed, and then the farther we go, and even like when you have pictures and you look at them, the longer the time goes, the more you only remember the good things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. Okay, so you want to share us a little bit of like just get into the story and tell us how the day went down.
Sure. So it really happened so fast. One thing is, my husband and I had actually lived together prior to getting married for probably 4 years. And we had bought a house. We bought our house in like March, I think. So we have been living at our house for 7 months, and our venue was almost an hour away from our home.
Mhm.
So we decided to stay the night together, and his family was actually staying at our house too.
Oh, wow.
So the
Mhm.
bridesmaids and I left to the venue early in the morning because I decided to do my own flowers,
Oh.
which actually turned out great. That's one thing that I would not change. Everyone said I was crazy. Everybody said I was going to regret it, but I don't. I love flowers, and I love making flower arrangements. So we went and made the flower arrangements, and
I feel like
then
it's kind of probably like some kind of like meditation for you of like get
yes.
into the zone of the wedding day.
Yes, yes. So, we were there at the venue making the flower arrangements. The vendors were setting up, and then the makeup artist came. We had a bridal suite, and what's funny is that my bridesmaids were having such a great time. And I think they kind of, we laugh about it now, but we laugh about it, and it sounds terrible, but it wasn't terrible. Um, they kind of forgot about me, so they brought champagne and they started drinking, and they all got a chair. And by the time I came in to have my makeup done, there were no more chairs. So I had to go to like this secluded little room where I went to get my hair and my makeup, and I wasn't even part of the party. And then, so my mom is a hairstylist, and she's the one that did my hair. So when she started, she was about to put on my hairpiece, and she got emotional. So
Mm.
that's when I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm catching feelings. Please, somebody
Uh-huh.
get me a drink." And they're all like, "Oh my gosh, we've been drinking the whole time and we haven't offered you a drink. Like, we totally forgot about you."
Did
So
they
yeah,
say, well, you didn't want it,
you
bridesmaids?
just haven't
You
had
didn't
good.
want it.
They were, oh my gosh. But I forgot to give my mom her robe to get dressed, to get ready
Uh-huh.
with us. So the wedding ceremony was at 4, and the photographer came at 1:30. We went outside, took pictures, and by the time we came back, it was time for me to walk down the aisle, which I saw so little of what I had planned for so long. And
Mm.
it felt great. It felt great. But I just wish I had seen the whole thing. Like I didn't see my bridesmaids walking down the aisle,
Yeah.
and I didn't hear the song that I had chosen for
Yeah.
them. I didn't see my husband walking down the aisle. It was beautiful though. It was beautiful. I wasn't nervous walking down the aisle. I said hi to people and I was smiling. I was just,
Oh.
I was happy. And that's one thing that my boss had told me. He said, "Please, when you walk down the aisle, can you not look so serious?" He said, "All the brides always look so serious walking down the aisle."
Uh-huh.
So, we had the ceremony. I forgot my vows,
Oh, at
and
home?
it was I'm the one that made my husband practice, because we didn't write our own vows. This is where the Game of Thrones thing kind of came in. We recited some words together. So it was like I had a line, he had a line, and then we had a line together, and I forgot my
Oh.
line. So
Oh.
I said it wrong. Then I finally remembered, but that's when it hit me, and I totally forgot who I was or where I was, and I started to tear up, but I was able to get it together, and then the rest went by. After that, we took pictures while people were inside at the cocktail party,
Mm-hmm.
and then we came in. We did the first dance,
Mm-hmm.
which we took lessons for, because we had
Mm.
a choreographed dance, which was Harry Potter waltz.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, and I forgot the steps too.
No.
Ah, so nobody knew, nobody could
Uh-huh.
tell. And
You
we had like
improvised.
yeah, and I don't know how the wedding trends have changed, but by the time we got married, they were starting this thing called dancing on a cloud, where it's like a fog machine that gives the effect of you're dancing on a cloud. So it covered our feet, and nobody could tell that I was messing up all the steps.
Nice.
But yeah, no, we did the first dance, we had dinner, and then after that we got right to dancing. And that's where the Mexican traditions came out more than
Mm-hmm.
anything. We have a typical Mexican dance called Víbora de la Mar, which is
Mm-hmm.
the snake of the sea,
Mm-hmm.
where the bride and the groom both stand on top of a chair, and then you use the bride's veil to make a bridge, and then everybody holds hands and comes dancing all around the venue. And
Oh.
as the song goes on, it gets faster, and the point of the song is for people to fall. I don't
Oh,
know.
like you have to fall as when it gets
the
faster?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the DJ makes it go faster so
Uh-huh.
that people go faster and people start falling. I don't know
Oh,
why,
that's cool.
but
You know
um,
what's the meaning of that tradition?
I really don't. I
That's
really don't, and
interesting.
I try to research it, and nothing would tell me why, or nothing would tell me why. But that's just like what I grew up with,
Yeah.
and going to Mexican weddings, that's what I was looking forward to. And
Mm-hmm.
then what took everybody by surprise and what everybody to this day talks about is the fact that in the Mexican tradition, you get the groom, and the groomsmen pick him up and they parade him around to this song that's like it's this like doomed song that basically means the groom is dead because he got married. So they carry him and they like parade him around, take off his jacket, take off his shoes, pour beer on him or champagne, whatever
Oh
you have,
my God.
and then they throw him up in the air to try and revive him. And nobody had seen that before, and they can't like they just can't get over the fact that they were throwing him up and that he was going around barefoot. Just so it's just everybody had fun with that because everybody can participate in
Uh-huh.
the snake dance and the throwing the groom up in the
Yeah.
air. So that was the thing that nobody had seen and that everybody enjoyed surprisingly.
Mm-hmm.
So
We have actually like a Hungarian wedding tradition where usually men would steal the bride during the reception and take her in some bar, and then the groom has to go and find her. And then he
oh
would
my
go
goodness.
from bar to bar and then like get a drink and then go to the next one, get a drink until they find her, and then to
Well, that's
take her
cool.
back. So it's just kind of like a similar thing. Like one of them just wants to get away from this marriage.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, but I love that you didn't really like think too much into it. You know, sometimes we're worried about bringing these traditions in and getting labeled or getting some type of like stereotype of like, oh, I don't want people to think this or that. I love that you didn't really think it too much. You just thought it is fun, so we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
did you said that you had done a lot of other Mexican musics too during the reception? You guys danced a lot.
Yes, we did it half American and half Mexican. And it was actually not only because our families were, two different cultures, but it's just because our guest list was, like we had Indian people, Japanese people that had never been to even an American wedding.
Hmm.
So for them, we did a lot of the like American line dances, and then we
Mm-hmm.
also did a lot of the Mexican line dances. And we just went around with a guest. We played some country music.
Uh-huh.
So my husband and his friends and family went around taking everybody else and teaching them how to two-step. And
Oh.
then my family went around taking the other guests, teaching them
Uh-huh.
the Mexican song. So, I mean,
That's cool.
it really was cool. Everybody was on board with everything.
But not in the same time, right? Did you guys do it like one and then the other?
So you know what? It was like the DJ would play maybe like three songs in English and then like one in Spanish, or it would just kind of like go back and
Yeah.
forth. It seemed like it was going to be all over the place, but actually the guest said, "Hey, I actually like that because you
Uh-huh.
changed it up and it wasn't like a group felt like they had to sit down for a long time before
Yeah.
a song they knew came on."
So did you notice that Americans would sit down when the Mexican songs comes up and then reverse, or they
You
stay?
know what? We were afraid that they were going to
Yeah.
sit, but no, they actually embraced it and everybody was dancing to everything. So that was
Uh-huh.
great.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
great. Okay, and can you remember, is there any other maybe cultural difference that was a surprise for your guests or maybe for parents even?
For my family was the fact that we didn't get married at a church. So they hadn't been to a church that was not, I mean, or a wedding that wasn't at a church. And also, we had a string quartet, and that's something that, my Mexican family hadn't seen at a wedding. But one thing that his family hadn't seen from a string quartet is that we actually chose covers of songs that we liked instead of the typical classical music that the
Uh-huh.
string quartets play. So they were like, I think, why did you play those
Well,
songs?
that's good. And then you mentioned that you had guests from other like third cultures, Indians, and what else did you say?
Japanese.
Yeah, Japanese. Was that fun for them too, or
Yes, it was very fun for them. Our guests had not been to an American or a Mexican wedding.
that's cool.
So that was also a different thing for them. The ceremony, we did a hand fasting,
Yeah.
and then the food was different and the dancing was different.
Can you like tell us a little bit about what the hand fasting ceremony is if, some listeners don't know what that is?
So again, this was something that we got from Game of Thrones.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, in their weddings they tie they tie a ribbon around the groom and the bride's hand. And so, it's basically binding you together. And so I do think it's an Irish tradition though, just from like what I saw. And it really is just how some people do the sand, some other people just really want to be bound
Mhm.
and literally tie the knot because
Yeah.
they tie a knot at the
Yeah.
end of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was more of the Game of Thrones inspired thing that we had, but I know there is a meaning. I just don't want to mess it up and tell you the wrong information.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's good of the why you chose that. I love that
Yeah.
aspect. Do couples try to find some kind of simple and unifying and being one after the wedding? So yeah, I love that you chose that for the reason of the movie. So can you talk a little bit about Brian's side of the family? And I know that he's not here.
Yeah.
How did Americans experience this blended wedding? What did his parents do on a wedding day? What did they say? What did they love the most?
So the compliments, or the things that were said about the our wedding was that it was fun, and that people were dancing, and which was kind of weird to me because I would think that everybody dances at weddings, but
Yeah.
his family is very quiet.
Uh huh.
So yeah, they're very quiet, and at weddings they actually just like sit and talk. It ends early, and so everybody had fun.
They didn't feel intimidated of, oh, I don't want to dance. I just want to sit here because of this unknownness.
Initially, they were. Everybody was nervous. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what to expect. The area that they're from, there isn't a lot of Hispanic people, so they've never been in the same room like with someone that's actually Mexican. They've never been to Mexico or anything like that.
Uh-huh.
And so I think they were thinking in the beginning that it was going to be really different. But then once they got there, they
Mm-hmm.
saw that the food was all, generic, and there was English, and there was, other English people. And
Yeah.
so, and my family was very welcoming,
Mm-hmm.
and they really liked that. His whole family came and said that they felt welcomed and they felt included. And one of his cousins actually said, please invite me to another Mexican wedding because they're
Aw.
so much fun.
I love that. Well, that's the
Yeah,
best compliment then.
yeah.
And you haven't mentioned anything about any religious differences or bringing in anything religious into your wedding. Did you have anything like that?
No, so we actually decided not to do anything religious because, well, we're not religious, but even he and I have different religious views. So it was just, I guess, something that uh, I don't know. I stick to mine and he sticks to his, and we kind of don't, mess
Yeah.
with that. And then, so, my family is like really Catholic, and his family is like really conservative Christian. But also, I mean, some of my best friends are Jewish, and
Mm-hmm.
then some of his best friends are Hindu. We just wanted to be everybody to be comfortable, so we just didn't even do anything religious.
That makes it simple.
Yeah, and it's also things that I don't believe in, so I was like, I'm not going to do it. So there's
Mm-hmm.
there's this one thing that says, like, the guy gives you these coins, aras, and he says that he's now financially responsible for you. And I'm like, well, I don't know about that. And it's a lot of like obey, 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 and.
Uh-huh.
I think weddings are supposed to be about love and not too much of the I'm his now and he's going to be my owner. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I completely agree. And it's just so hard for us, especially brides, to try to plan a wedding where you can avoid that without
Mhm.
feeling like you're not following the wedding traditions.
Right.
Yeah. Did any of the guests said that, were missed something or said that it was just too not traditional or unusual, unexpected?
I had two people. One person complimented the fact that we got married by a woman.
Oh, okay.
So they liked that. And then we had one person that said the wedding was beautiful, but God wasn't invited. And I said, no, he was invited. So that was the only thing. But from the rest of everybody else, it was actually a positive feedback. They
Yeah.
liked the fact that we did what we wanted, and that the wedding was us, and not that we didn't do all the other wedding things just because they're done at weddings.
Yes.
I'm a huge Harry Potter fan,
Mm-hmm.
so anybody who knows me knows that there was going to be Harry Potter. And then all of our friends, we're this huge geek group of Game of Thrones fans, and like that's our friendship, and that's our life. So more than anything, people appreciated that it was just us, that it was a Marcela and Brian wedding, not this whole thing, let's just do it because. And then a few people said, oh, thank you for not putting us through an hour of religious rituals.
Yes.
Because, Mexican weddings at the church, they go for like an hour and a half.
Yes. And I love that one of your guests mentioned that a woman married you. That's something that for I wouldn't even realize or recognize, and it's cool that for some people that's a novelty and in a good way,
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
positive way.
And that was one of the things that I was happy that somebody said something about it, because it was kind of like a sneaky way that I put my beliefs there.
Yes.
And we didn't say you may now kiss your bride.
Uh-huh.
She said you may now seal your promises with a kiss.
Oh,
And we
love
did
it.
that.
And I love that how you said that for you adding your personality, what you love, and what people who come to your wedding enjoy, the
Yes.
Game of Thrones and Harry Potter, and like to actually meet and have fun together and not have all these formals and
Mhm.
traditions. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it wasn't like a theme, but it had like the classy Harry Potter things like hidden in there. It wasn't like we didn't get married at a castle or, anything like that. But one thing that I did was what's that called? Where you tell people where to seat, a seating chart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I had a seating chart, and what I did is I got these little favor boxes, and I filled them up with Mexican candy. So when everybody came to their seat, they had a little present because it was around Christmas time. And
Uh-huh.
when they opened it, it was Mexican candy. And
Mm-hmm.
that was something that we got so many compliments on. And people asked me, hey, what was that candy that you had at your wedding? And they went and bought it. So, that was nice. And my family complimented the cocktail hour because Mexican weddings don't have cocktail
Oh
hour. And
yeah.
they always start late and you end up eating until like 8 and everybody's
Uh-huh.
starving. So they really appreciated that there was a snack before the actual meal.
Yes. And it's a good surprise to have. Like, oh, I didn't know we're
Yeah.
gonna have this. I didn't know we're gonna have that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how you added a little bit of your personality, a little bit of your culture, your husband's culture. Everything really seems like it just came together perfectly for you.
It was a miracle. I don't know how
Yeah.
it came out so perfectly together because when I told the wedding, the day of coordinator what it was about, I could tell she was panicking a little, like, oh gosh, this sounds like a recipe for disaster because you're trying to do so many different things. But once it happened, it was like, oh, okay, good. That was good. That was good.
You really just added some subtle
Mhm.
things. Sounds like a great balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we come to the end of our interview, is there something that you would like to give other intercultural couples some advice? Maybe if there is somebody out there who's also planning a Mexican American wedding and they're trying to figure out, they feel overwhelmed of what should we add, what should we take out, some advice that you could give them.
Well, the advice that I have is I think just respect each other. Like if something is important to your husband or your wife, just, hear them out. Hear them out. If it's important to them, then try to find a way to compromise and do it. And don't do it just because everybody else does it. If it doesn't speak to you, don't do it. If you don't believe in it, don't do it because this is your wedding. It goes by fast. And at the end of the day, you and your husband are the ones that are going to remember this day forever. So just do what's important to you and what's important to them from your own experience. I didn't find anything on Pinterest or the internet that wasn't stereotypical. So I would just say stick to what you know growing up and what's important to you.
I love that. That's a really good
And
advice.
have fun.
Yes.
You're going to survive. I think everybody we stress out so much on what's going to happen, but it's going to be totally fine.
That's great. I think you're gonna help so many Mexican American couples to plan their wedding with your story. And thank you so much for sharing this. I really enjoyed hearing all of your stories and little tricks of implementing subtle things into your wedding.
Well, thank you. It was so much fun. I think what you're doing is great. I wish I would have known about it when I was planning and I went and listened to the podcast and it's great. It's
Yeah.
great. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to know that there's a need for that. And, more
Yes.
and more couples are getting married from other cultures. More and more is becoming a normal thing. So I think that we need to expand our wedding planning into more of the cultural and mixed couples.
Yes.
Yeah. Would you like to share with the listeners some of your contact information, maybe some social media, if they have more questions, if they want to chat with you, if they want to maybe see some pictures from your wedding? Would you like to share some?
I would love to. You can find me on Instagram and it's Marcela J. Alan.
Okay. Thank you so much again for being on my show. I think that a lot of couples will have a lot of really good, useful information out of your story. And thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to sit down and chat with me. And that's all, you guys. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.